Welcome to episode 2 of Walking the Path of Grief podcast. And the first thing that I want to say is just thank you so much for all the feedback and the messages that I've received after episode 1. And the overriding theme has been, we don't talk about this enough, and what we don't talk enough about is grief. And I've got so many things that I do want to chat to you about, but I was thinking about what is the biggest thing that people struggle with, not just people who are experiencing the grief, but those around them, their loved ones, their friends, their work colleagues. So today's episode is about, what do I do or say? How do I be around someone who is grieving? And I've seen some really sad situations in the years that I've been working as a grief guide. And that is that when people don't know what to do or what to say or how to be around someone who has suffered a loss, they tend to disappear. I've had situations where people have crossed the street so they don't have to talk to the person who has had a family member who has died. There is the mother of a good friend of mine. His dad passed unexpectedly after an operation, a routine operation. And their best friends, whom they had played, I think it was bridge, every week for years, went away together, attended the funeral, and then she never saw them again, never heard from them again. And I get it. It's, as human beings, we're not, I don't say not equipped, we're not taught to deal with big emotions, and we live in a society where it's be positive, this too shall pass. And sometimes that can spill over into when someone is grieving. So generally what happens is, if there's a loss, somebody dies, whether it's expected or not, everybody rallies around. Like, people will be bringing food for the family, they'll be there, they'll be consoling, because there's all the formalities around the loss that need to happen. There's the arranging of the funeral. Family members are generally shell-shocked. They're trying to sort of get their head around the enormity of the loss, plus all the formalities that need to happen. And you'll find well-meaning people step in, especially I live in a small town. The community is amazing. They just rally around the family, the person, the loved ones, and they get everything done. And then they have the funeral, and then everyone sort of goes back to their lives. And for the person who is grieving, life has changed forever. And you find that friends will say, let me know if I can help. Let me know if you need anything. I can tell you now, it is highly unlikely that the grieving person is going to reach out and say to you, would you mind picking up some shopping for me? Or I'm really struggling, I'm feeling very alone. They won't. And they won't because they don't want to be a bother. And sometimes they won't because they just don't think about it, because they're in this fog. The first year after you lose someone is sometimes the whole year is a fog, but certainly the first few months. You don't eat properly, you forget to do things, you forget to pay bills. It depends how much of an impact the loss has had on you. but the grieving person will very seldom reach out. So by saying, let me know if you need anything, turn it around. Don't wait to be asked. You can drop food off. Organize delivery of groceries. Most towns these days, where I live, it's check a 60/60. Arrange for groceries. Make food and deliver it, something they can pop in the fridge or the freezer. If children are involved, find out, can you drop them off at school? Can you do the school run for a while? Can you sit with the kids while mom has a much needed rest? Or whatever it is, don't wait for them to ask you, because they won't. The other thing I want to say is that whatever you say, whatever you do, you're not going to make them feel better. And I think that's where a lot of people do struggle, is they want the person to feel better. And I've had well-meaning, caring, loving friends phone me going, my friend needs to come and see you. She's lost her husband and she's not getting out of bed and she's just sleeping all day and she's crying and she needs to come and see you. And then I will always ask, like, how long ago, did the person pass? And generally it's only a matter of weeks. And my reply is always the same: leave them be. This is the way that the body processes grief. We can't possibly just carry on, pick ourselves up, show up every day being happy and jolly. It's impossible. We need to cry. Crying is the body's way of healing. Crying is the body's way of releasing. So if their way of dealing with it for now is to stay in bed day after day and not want to face the world, leave them be. What you can do, however, is you can show up and just be with them. Just so that someone is there. Even if you are sitting on the bed next to them, stroking their hair while they're sobbing their hearts out. Even if you're sitting in the lounge quietly reading, checking on them now and again, making sure they've had a piece of toast and a cup of tea. It is not your function to fix it, and you can't fix it. We can't fix grief. And I think that's where people often, they fall into the trap of thinking, I have to fix this. I have to make them feel better. And if they can't do that, they sometimes feel like they've failed. And that's when they start disappearing. So we call it, in the women's business group that I have, we started a thing called the Mud Buddy group. And when you're a mud buddy, you sit in the mud with the person. You don't try and take them out of the mud. You don't try and clean the mud off them. You sit in the mud with them until they're ready to get up and stand and get out of the mud. Because that is their journey. We cannot alter somebody's grief journey. If you phone me up a year from now and your friend is still lying in bed crying day after day, not functioning, that's a different story, because that is not healthy grief. That is when someone has become stuck in grief. Because although I will say this time and time again, there's no time frame for grief and there's no getting over grief, that initial rawness does ease. It does soften. The edges soften. And generally, once you're through the year of firsts, it does become a little bit easier. In that year of firsts, when you know it's the deceased person's birthday, or you know a special anniversary is coming up, or it's Christmas or Easter, Christmas, to lose someone around Christmas is really, really hard because everyone's in holiday mode and it's all good cheer and everything else. But anniversaries around Christmas can be particularly challenging. It's just sending that person a message or a phone call, thinking of you. I know this time of year is hard. The person who is grieving just wants to know that they are seen. After John died, I've got an amazing network of friends. And a number of them were like, I need to come and see you. I want to come and see you. And I would go, I can't people. That was my phrase. I can't people at the moment. But I promise you I will reach out when I need to. And it taught me, that time of grief taught me to ask for help. But there were times when I had to say to my friends, I can't, I'm sorry. I can't be sociable. I can't pretend I'm okay. And I also had friends who would just show up and they go, I'm here. What do you need? What do you need from me? And if I did need something, I would tell them. And if I didn't, I'd go, you know what, I'm good now, but I promise you I will reach out. And then they would message me. I had one friend who messaged me religiously every week. How are you doing? You okay? Can I get you anything? You know? So someone who is grieving, they need to be seen. They need to know that they are still there, because especially if it's a loss of a spouse, you know, suddenly you were part of a whole and now you're only a half and there's a gap here. So you're trying to adjust to a whole new way of living as a widow or a widower. And there's this weird thing that happens, and I see it time and time again. So you were part of a group of friends. Now you're single. For some bizarre reason, I've never understood this, very often with the couples that you were all friends with, some of them suddenly see you as a threat. Why they would think that a grieving person now is after the next available partner, I have no idea. But that can sometimes be a reason why people get dropped from circles of friends. It happens. The other thing that happens is people, because they don't know what to say, they say nothing. They just disappear. And what happens then is they leave it for so long not contacting the person that it becomes an embarrassment. And then the friendship just falls apart, simply because they feel so awkward. The other thing that happens is, because they don't know what to say, they end up saying or doing things that are completely inappropriate. And I have heard some doozies in my time. Please, here are some of the things I want you never to say to someone who has just suffered a bereavement. Please don't tell them the person is in a better place. You don't know that. You don't know where they are. If someone had said that to me about John, I think I would have punched them, because his better place was with me. Even though I knew he was at the end of his life, he was 81 when he died, I knew all of that. But he wasn't in a better place. He should have been with me. Do not tell them that it's God's will, or that they are in the arms of God or Jesus, especially if you don't know their religious background. Don't put your beliefs onto them. That doesn't make someone feel any better, I can promise you, when they have just suffered the devastating loss of somebody. I had someone who, after her husband died and she was left with 3 young children, her boss phoned her up and said, oh, well, at least you're young enough to get married again. I was like, oh, what? I just, at least anything, any sentence that starts with the word at least, don't say it. Don't say it. At least you have other children. What? I mean, the lack of thought to actually say that to a parent that has just lost a child. At least you have other children. At least this, at least that. Please never use a sentence that starts with at least. Instead of saying, I'm sorry for your loss, which is very generic, say, I'm really sorry that you're going through this. Talk about the person. You know, this is the other thing, is you often find people don't want to mention the person's name. And in a way, that makes the bereaved person feel like they never existed because nobody talks about them. Tell them, if you knew the person, tell them what you remembered. What's your favorite memory? What was it that you loved about them? I've often in this town, because my husband was so well known and so loved, and people to this day say to me, like, I miss John, I miss his sense of humor, I miss that scowl that he used to have on his face and he used to furrow his eyebrows. I miss this about him, I miss that, or they'll tell me a story about him, and I love that. I love remembering him. And I love it when others remember him. So don't be afraid to share your memories or experiences of the person, but don't make them up. If you didn't know the person who has died, please don't sort of pretend that you did. Just say, I'm really sorry that you are going through this. And I hold you in my heart. If you are someone that prays, you can say to them, I'm holding you in my prayers, I'm holding you in my thoughts. Keep it simple. My very first grief client, once I had certified, was a divine woman in America, and we're still friends to this day. She might even watch this podcast, I don't know. And she had lost, over the space of a couple of years, 2 grown-up children who died in their sleep. She literally was recovering from the death of her daughter, and her son died. And they discovered then a genetic heart condition that they didn't even know existed. And I remember meeting this woman on Zoom and listening to her story, and I remember thinking to myself, I know I want to do this work, but could you have brought me an easier one for my first client? I mean, I was speechless as I heard this story, and she was so broken, and I just said to her, I don't know how you're still standing. I have no words. And it was just the most honest thing I could say. There was no ways I could even try and make her feel better. And all I could do was listen. And we worked together for over a year. And today she has taken her pain and her grief and turned it into something beautiful, helping other mothers, doing amazing retreat work for mothers who have lost children. But the reason I'm telling you this story is she received a fruit basket from a friend, and the note with the fruit basket said, we hope this in some way eases the loss of your son. A fruit basket. Like what? I mean, I was flabbergasted when she told me that. So if you don't know what to say, say nothing. I'm sorry you're going through this is enough. But please don't ignore the person. Grief is a lonely enough journey as it is. Even though there's so much grief around, we're all going to experience it at some time. It's an incredibly lonely journey because everybody feels different. So, sometimes it's even hard to compare the way we feel. We were chatting about it this week. Like, some people will go into work, like they'll go, I need to work, I need to keep busy. And other people just fall apart and they can't function. So you can't even really compare each other's grief. It's lonely enough as it is. Please don't make it more lonely for the person. Be the mud buddy. Sit in the mud with them. Do little things. If you know that your friend who normally takes good care of herself and is always going off and having her nails done, and you know that she hasn't even looked at something like that, treat her. Pick her up, take her to the spa, spend the morning with her. When we're grieving, we need to find the glimmers of joy. It's not that you're going to have days when you're up all day, but you still can find the glimmers of joy. And it's those little glimmers of joy, those small pockets of laughter, of light, of connection with other people that help you through this process. There's always going to be the bad days, especially in the first few years. That's life. That's the journey of life. It's never all good or all bad. So the walking the path of grief, it's a path that goes up and down. Sometimes it's wide, sometimes it's narrow and rocky, and you think you just can't do it. And the last thing that I want to say is, there is this thing, and it's come up twice this week with people that I know. There is a period at about 9 months that the reality sets in that they're not coming back. And I found this out through a discussion I had with a clinical psychologist. After John died, I had to go and I had an appointment with one it was for a court case. And obviously they ask you all your background, and I saw this woman, I think in the August, and John had died in the June, and I said, I'm a widow. And she said, it's so interesting. They found that at about 9 months, she said, up until then, it's like the body part of you thinks they're on a long holiday or an extended business trip, and they're going to walk through the door any minute. And she said something happens at 9 months and the reality hits that they're not coming back. Like, this is it. And it's like the grief hits all over again. And I've seen that twice this week with 2 people that I know who are struggling, who lost their partners. Just actually both of them like almost 9 months ago. So between 8 and 10 months. And it just hits. That's when they need their friends, because that grief is brutal and it's raw, and sometimes you feel like you can't go on. That's when they need their friends, just to be there, to listen. Sometimes a person who's grieving just needs to talk about how they're feeling. Grief needs our time and our space. You're going to hear me say that a lot on this podcast. It needs our time and it needs our space. So please think about what you're going to say if you're going to send a message to someone you've just heard that they've lost someone. No sentences that start with "at least." No telling them the person is in a better place. Just, I'm thinking of you. I'm holding you in my heart. I'm so sorry to hear about your devastating loss. I hope this is useful. We always need friends. We always need connection. And when we're grieving, we need it more than ever. But don't push them. Don't push them to get over it. Don't tell them, oh, you shouldn't be this bad now. And it's 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks since the loved one died. This is a long journey. And it's a journey that cannot be predicted in any shape or form, which is why I do the work that I do. It's why I want to educate people and workplaces about the impact of grief on people and workplaces and communities. It's time to start having the conversations about it. So please reach out if you need help or support, or you have questions, if there's something that you want me specifically to cover. My podcast is on Spotify and Apple and YouTube. Please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care. Look after yourself and take care of those who are struggling with grief.